Mia Rodriguez stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering if she had completely lost her mind. The black sequined dress clung to her curves in all the right places, and her dark hair fell in loose waves over her shoulders. Looked good, really good, but that wasn't the question. The question was whether she was ready to forget about her cheating ex-boyfriend for one night and actually have some fun. Mia, come on. Jenna's voice echoed from outside the bathroom door. The Uber is here, and I'm not letting you chicken out now. Taking a deep breath, Mia grabbed her clutch and opened the door. Her best friend stood there with a huge grin, wearing a red dress that made her look like a movie star. Jenna had been trying to get Mia out of the house for 3 weeks, ever since she'd discovered her boyfriend Marcus cheating with his secretary. You look amazing, Jenna said, linking arms with her. Tonight is about you forgetting that loser and remembering how incredible you are. The Electric Blue nightclub was packed when they arrived. The music thumped through the floor, and colorful. Lights danced across the crowd of people. Mia felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach as they made their way to the bar. It had been so long since she'd been anywhere like this. 2 shots of tequila, Jenna ordered, sliding money across the bar. And make them strong. Jenna, I don't think no thinking tonight, her friend interrupted, pushing a shot glass into Mia's hand. Tonight is about feeling alive again. Tequila burned going down, but it also sent a warm feeling through Mia's chest. Maybe Jenna was right. Maybe she did need this. She'd spent too long playing it safe, being the responsible one, making sure everyone else was happy. When was the last time she'd done something just for herself? Better? Jenna asked, ordering. 2 more shots. Getting there, Mia admitted, surprised to find herself smiling. The second shot went down easier. By the third, Mia was actually laughing at Jenna's terrible jokes. The music seemed louder, the lights brighter, and the weight she'd been carrying on her shoulders felt lighter. I'm going to the bathroom, Jenna announced after they'd been there for an hour. Don't move, and definitely don't let any creepy guys buy you drinks. Alone at the bar, Mia ordered a vodka soda and let herself really look around the club for the first time. People were dancing, laughing, lost in the moment. When was the last time she'd felt that free? Working at the courthouse was rewarding, but it was also serious and structured. There wasn't much room for spontaneity in legal paperwork. Rough night? The voice was deep and warm, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. Mia turned to see a man leaning against the bar next to her. He was tall, with dark hair, and the kind of smile that probably got him into trouble. He wore a simple black button-down shirt that fit him perfectly. And when their eyes met, she felt something electric pass between them. Why would you think? That? She asked, taking a sip of her drink. Beautiful woman, drinking alone at a bar, checking her phone every 30 seconds. He gestured to her clutch, where she'd been unconsciously reaching for her phone. Either you're waiting for someone, or you're trying to avoid thinking about someone. Mia laughed despite herself. That's very observant of you, stranger. Nathan, he said, extending his hand. And you're right, we are strangers. But sometimes strangers make the best conversation partners. Mia, she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm and warm, and he didn't let go immediately. And what makes you think I want to have a conversation? The fact that you're still talking to me, he said with that troublesome smile. Plus your friend over there is giving me very obvious thumbs up. Mia turned to see Jenna emerging from the bathroom, indeed giving Nathan an enthusiastic thumbs up behind his back. She rolled her eyes and turned back to Nathan, who was trying not to laugh. She's subtle, Mia said. It's about as subtle as a fire truck, Nathan agreed. But she seems to care about you. That's nice. There was something genuine in the way he said it that made Mia study his face more carefully. He had kind eyes, despite the mischievous smile, and laugh lines that suggested he didn't take himself too seriously. So, Nathan, what brings you to Electric Blue on a Friday night? New in town, he said, signaling the bartender for another drink. Thought I'd see what the nightlife was like. What about you? Besides avoiding thinking about someone, I mean. Felt her cheeks warm. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there, Nathan said gently. Recent 3 weeks ago, she found herself admitting, caught him with someone else. His loss, Nathan said simply, and the way he said it made her believe he meant it. The conversation flowed easier after that. Nathan was funny and charming, but not in the fake way that usually made Mia's guard go up. He listened when she talked, asked thoughtful questions, and made her laugh in a way she hadn't in months. When he suggested they dance, she surprised herself by saying yes. The dance floor was crowded, but Nathan found them a spot near the center. The song was something slow and sultry, and when he pulled her close, Mia felt her heart rate pick up. For reasons that had nothing to do with the alcohol. "You're a good dancer," she said, her hands resting on his shoulders. "You sound surprised," he replied, his hands settling on her waist. "Most guys just kind of sway and hope for the best." "I'm not most guys," Nathan said, spinning her out and back in smoothly. The song changed to something with a heavier beat, and their dancing became more intense. Mia found herself pressed against Nathan's chest, moving with him to the rhythm. She could smell his cologne, something woodsy and masculine, and feel the heat radiating from his body. "Mia," he said her name like a question. She looked up at him, and the expression in his eyes made her breath catch. There was desire there, but also something deeper, something that made her feel like the only person in the room. "Yeah," she whispered instead of answering. He leaned down and kissed her. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, giving her a chance to pull away. But Mia didn't want to pull away. She wanted to lose herself in this moment, in this feeling of being wanted and desired. She kissed him back, her hands tangling in his hair. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "Come with me," Nathan said, taking her hand. He led her off the dance floor. Through the crowd, to a quieter corner of the club, where there were some high tables and dim lighting. But even there, with less people around, the tension between them was electric. "Mia, he started. "Don't," she interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. "Don't think about it. I've been thinking too much lately and I'm tired of it." She pulled him down for another kiss, this one more urgent than the first. Nathan responded immediately, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her closer. When they broke apart this time, his eyes were dark with want. "Are you sure?" he asked, his forehead resting against hers. "I'm sure," she said, and meant it. What happened next was like something out of a dream. They found themselves in the club's back hallway, away from the crowds and the music. Nathan pressed her against the wall, his mouth on her neck, her hands exploring the muscles of his back through his shirt. "You're incredible," he murmured against her ear, sending shivers down her spine. "Are you?" she replied, pulling his face back to hers for another kiss. They stayed like that for what felt like hours. Lost in each other, the rest of the world forgotten. It was passionate and intense and unlike anything Mia had ever experienced. With Marcus, everything had been predictable, scheduled. This was wild and spontaneous, and exactly what she needed. When they finally came up for air, Nathan smoothed her hair back from her face with gentle hands. "This is crazy," Mia said, but she was smiling. "It's a good kind of crazy," Nathan agreed. "I should probably find Jenna," she said reluctantly. "Should you?" Nathan asked, his thumb tracing her cheek. "Worry if I disappear?" Nathan nodded, understanding. "Can I see you again?" Mia hesitated. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, but another part reminded her that she'd just gotten out of a relationship, that she was vulnerable, that this might be exactly the kind of mistake she'd regret in the morning. "I don't know," she said. Honestly, Nathan smiled, but there was disappointment in his eyes. "I understand. But Mia, for what it's worth, this doesn't feel like a mistake to me." "It doesn't feel like one to me either," she admitted. "But that might be the tequila talking. Or it might be something real," Nathan said softly. They made their way back to the main part of the club, where Jenna immediately pounced on them. "There. You are." "I was starting to think you'd been kidnapped," she said, but her knowing smile suggested she had a pretty good idea of what had been happening. "Just getting some air," Mia said, her cheeks warming. "Uh-huh," Jenna said. "Well, I hate to break up whatever this is, but our Uber is here." Mia felt a pang of disappointment, but she knew Jenna was right. It was getting late, and she had a feeling that if she stayed much longer, she might do something even more impulsive. "It was nice meeting you, Nathan," she said formally, but her eyes said much more. "The pleasure was all mine, Mia," he replied, taking her hand and kissing it gently. "I hope our paths cross again." As Jenna dragged her toward the exit, Mia looked back once to see Nathan watching her leave. Their eyes met across the crowded club, and she felt that same electric connection. "One more time?" In the Uber, Jenna peppered her with questions, but Mia found herself oddly reluctant to share details. What had happened with Nathan felt special, private, and she wanted to keep it to herself for a while. He was gorgeous, Jenna said. Please, tell me you got his number? No, Mia said quietly.
Oh, are you insane?
That man was perfect for you. It was just one night, Jenna. Sometimes that's enough. But as she lay in bed later that night, replaying every moment of her encounter with Nathan, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that it had been much more than just one night. There had been something about him, something that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. Still, she told herself, as she finally drifted off to sleep. It was probably for the best. She'd had her wild night, her moment of freedom. Now, it was back to reality, back to her job at the courthouse, back to her carefully ordered life. She had no way of knowing that reality was about to become much more complicated than she could ever have imagined. Monday morning came too soon for Mia's liking. She'd spent the entire weekend replaying her encounter with Nathan, analyzing every touch, every word, every glance. By Sunday night, she'd convinced herself it was exactly what it needed to be, a perfect moment in time that didn't need to be. More than that, the Riverside County Courthouse was buzzing with unusual energy when Mia arrived at 8:30. She'd worked there for 4 years as a court clerk, and she could always tell when something big was happening. Today felt different. Did you hear? Her coworker Beverly whispered as Mia settled at her desk. We're getting a new sheriff today. They say he's young, experienced, and came here from the big city. Mia's stomach did a little flip, though she couldn't say why. What happened to Sheriff Morrison? Retirement, finally? Man was 72 and should have stepped down years ago. Beverly leaned closer. Word is the new guy is some hotshot from Los Angeles. Probably thinks he's going to clean up our little town. Well, maybe that's not such a bad thing, Mia said, trying to focus on organizing her files. The courthouse dealt with everything from traffic violations to serious crimes, and sometimes it did feel like they were drowning in bureaucracy. Maybe not, Beverly agreed. But change always makes me nervous. Mia spent the morning processing paperwork and trying not to think about Nathan. Every time his face popped into her mind, she felt that same flutter in her chest that she'd experienced. Friday night, it was ridiculous. Really? She was 26 years old, not some teenager with a crush. Around 11. Judge Patterson's secretary announced that there would be a brief introduction ceremony for the new sheriff in conference room. All courthouse staff were invited to attend. Come on, Beverly said, grabbing Mia's arm. Let's go check out the new boss. Conference room A was packed when they arrived. Mia found herself standing near the back, craning her neck to see over the crowd. Judge Patterson was at the front, speaking in his usual formal tone about tradition and duty and community service. It is my great pleasure, the judge was saying, to introduce our new sheriff, who comes to us with an exemplary record of service in Los Angeles County. Please join me in welcoming Sheriff Nathan Brooks. The blood rushed out of Mia's face so fast she thought she might faint. Nathan stepped forward, looking impossibly professional in his crisp uniform. His hair was neatly combed, his posture straight and confident. And when he began to speak, his voice carried the same warm authority that had drawn her to him Friday night. But this couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Thank you for the warm welcome, Nathan was saying to the assembled crowd. I'm excited to work with all of you to serve this community. My door is always open, and I look forward to getting to know each of you individually. His eyes swept the room as he spoke, and when they landed on Mia, she saw the exact moment of recognition hit him. His composure didn't slip. He was too professional for that, but she caught the slight widening of his eyes, the almost imperceptible pause in his speech. I believe in transparency, accountability, and working together as a team, he continued smoothly, though his gaze kept drifting back to where she stood. I'm confident that we can build something great here.
Oh.
The applause that followed sounded muffled to Mia's ears. She felt like she was underwater, like this was all some elaborate nightmare. Of all the men in all the bars in all the world, she had to kiss the one who would become her boss. Mia? You okay? Beverly was looking at her with concern. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, Mia managed. Just surprised by how young he is. Young and handsome, Beverly said with a grin. This is going to make work much more interesting. people began filing out of the conference room, Mia tried to slip away unnoticed. Nathan's voice stopped. Her cold, Ms. Rodriguez? Could I speak with you for a moment? Every eye in the room seemed to turn toward her. Mia felt her cheeks burning as she slowly made her way to the front of the room. Nathan waited until everyone else had left before speaking. Well, he said quietly, and despite everything, that familiar smile played at the corners of his mouth. This is unexpected. Unexpected is one word for it, Mia replied, proud that her voice sounded steadier than she felt. Mia, I had no idea you worked here. If I had known what, you wouldn't have kissed me? The words came out sharper than she intended. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, disturbing its perfect styling. I don't know, maybe. This complicates things.
Oh, complicates things.
Mia couldn't help but laugh, though there was no humor in it. Nathan, this doesn't complicate things. This ends things. Whatever happened Friday night, it's over. Done. It has to be, does it? He asked, stepping closer. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you all weekend. Mia's resolve wavered for just a moment. The way he was looking at her, the sincerity in his voice, it was exactly what she'd been dreaming about. But dreams and reality were two very different things. Yes, it does, she said firmly. You're the sheriff now. I'm a courthouse employee. There are rules about these things, protocols, my reputation. Your reputation is safe with me, Nathan interrupted. But Mia, what we felt Friday night, that was real. You can't just pretend it didn't happen. Watch me, she said, turning to leave. Mia, wait. She stopped but didn't turn around. This doesn't have to be awkward, he said. We're both adults. We can work together professionally. You're right, she said, finally facing him again. We can, and we will. Okay, Sheriff Brooks, that's all we'll ever be. Professional colleagues, nothing more. The hurt that flashed across his face almost broke her resolve, but she forced herself to walk away. In the hallway, she practically ran to the bathroom.
Packing herself in a stall and taking deep breaths?
This was a disaster. How was she supposed to work with him every day, knowing what it felt like to be in his arms? Was she supposed to pretend that her heart didn't race every time she heard his voice? The rest of the day passed in a blur of paperwork and stolen glances. Every time Nathan walked past her desk, Mia felt her whole body tense. When he stopped to speak with other employees, she found herself listening to his voice, remembering how he'd whispered her name in the dark hallway of the club. By 5 o'clock, she was exhausted from the effort of appearing normal. Earth to Mia, Jenna's voice broke through her thoughts. Her friend had appeared at her desk with a concerned expression. Beverly called and said, "You look like death warmed over today." What's wrong? Mia glanced around the office, making sure. No one was listening. Remember Nathan? From Friday night? Of course I remember Nathan. He's gorgeous. Charming. Perfect Nathan. What about him? He's our new sheriff. Jenna's jaw dropped. What? Sheriff Nathan Brooks. He was introduced this morning. My God, Jenna, breathe. Oh my God, Mia, this is either the best thing that ever happened to you or the worst. It's the worst, Mia said firmly. Definitely the worst. Are you kidding me? The universe literally delivered your perfect man right to your workplace. It's like a romantic comedy come to life. It's like a nightmare come to life, Mia corrected. Jenna, he's my boss. Well, not directly, but still. There are rules about workplace relationships, especially with people in authority positions. Screw the rules, Jenna said immediately. You're both single adults. What you do on your own time is nobody's business. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Unless... Jenna's eyes narrowed. Unless you're scared? I'm not scared, Mia protested. You are. You're scared that this might actually be something real, something lasting. You're scared because Marcus hurt you, and now you don't trust your own feelings. Mia opened her mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because Jenna was right, at least partially. She was scared. Not just of the professional complications, but of how Nathan made her feel. Well, with Marcus, everything had been predictable. Safe. Nathan was anything but safe. Even if you were right, Mia said finally. Which you're not. It doesn't matter. I told him it was over. Professional colleagues only. And how did he take that? Mia remembered the hurt in Nathan's eyes and felt her heart clench. Like a professional. Mia, Jenna said gently, You can't let fear make all your decisions. Sometimes you have to take a risk. Sometimes you have to be smart, Mia countered. This job means everything to me. I won't jeopardize it for a man I barely know. But what if he's worth the risk? That was the question that haunted Mia all evening. What if Nathan was worth the risk? What if walking away from this was the biggest mistake of her life? But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she reminded herself of all the reasons why pursuing anything with Nathan was impossible. The courthouse was a small community. Word would get around quickly if she was involved with the sheriff. People would question her competence, her professionalism. They'd assume she was getting special treatment. No, she'd made the right decision. The only decision. So why did it feel so wrong? The next few days established a painful pattern. Nathan was unfailingly professional with her, greeting her politely when their paths crossed, including her in group conversations, treating her exactly like any other employee, which was exactly what she'd wanted, and exactly what was driving her slowly insane, because every professional nod, every polite smile, every careful distance he maintained felt like a small death. She found herself watching him interact with other people, seeing glimpses of the warm, funny man she'd met Friday night, and wondering if she'd imagined that version of him. On Thursday, things came to a head. Mia was working late, trying to catch up on a backlog of case files, when she heard footsteps in the hallway. The courthouse was mostly empty at 7 p.m., but she had her own key and often stayed late when she needed to focus. Ms. Rodriguez? Nathan stood in the doorway of her office, looking as tired as she felt. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, and for a moment, he looked less like Sheriff Brooks and more like the man who had made her forget her own name on a dance floor. Sheriff Brooks, she said formally. Is there something I can help you with? Actually, yes. He stepped into her office and closed the door behind him. We need to talk. Mia's heart started beating faster. If this is about the Morrison case files, I'll have them ready by tomorrow morning. It's not about case files, and you know it. Nathan moved closer to her desk. Mia, this isn't working. I don't know what you mean. We've been completely professional. Exactly. His voice was strained. We've been so professional that people are starting to notice. Beverly asked me today if I had a problem with you, because apparently I act like I'm afraid to get within 10 feet of you. Mia felt heat rise in her cheeks. I haven't noticed anything, haven't you? Nathan challenged. Because I've noticed everything. I noticed that you tense up every time I walk into a room. I noticed that you've stopped making eye contact with me. I noticed that you practically run in the opposite direction whenever you see me coming. That's not true, isn't it? He leaned against her desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne. The same woodsy scent that had filled her senses Friday night. Mia, I'm trying to respect your wishes, but this awkwardness between us is becoming more noticeable than if we just acted normal. This is normal, she insisted. No, it's not. His voice was gentle now. Normal would be us being able to have a conversation without you looking like you want to flee. Normal would be you not jumping out of your skin every time I say your name. Mia stood up abruptly, putting distance between them. What do you want from me, Nathan? The use of his first name hung in the air between them. It was the first time she'd said it since Monday morning, and they both felt the weight of it. I want to be able to work with you without this tension, he said. I want to be able to ask you about a case file without you acting like I'm going to attack you. And yes, I want to be able to look at you without remembering how you felt in my arms. Mia's breath caught. Nathan, don't. Don't what? Don't be honest? Don't admit that Friday night meant something to me? Don't make this harder than it already is. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. It is hard for you too, then. Mia closed her eyes, knowing she'd revealed too much. It doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters. When she opened her eyes, Nathan had moved closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that she could see the conflict in his dark eyes. Mia, I know this situation isn't ideal. I know there are complications, professional considerations. But I also know that what happened between us was real. You felt it too, didn't you? She wanted to lie. Wanted to tell him it had just been the alcohol, just a momentary lapse in judgment. Looking into his eyes, she couldn't do it. Yes, she whispered. I felt it. Nathan's expression softened. Then why are we fighting it? Because I have to. The words came out more desperately than she intended. Nathan, you don't understand. This job, this career, it's everything to me. I've worked so hard to get where I am, to prove myself. If people think I'm involved with you, they'll question everything I've ever accomplished. And you think I'd let that happen? You might not have a choice. People talk. They make assumptions. And women always get judged more harshly. Nathan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. So what are you saying? That we can never even try? I'm saying that some things are more important than what we want, are they? Nathan challenged. Because right now, standing here with you, nothing feels more important than this. He reached out as if to touch her face, then dropped his hand. Mia, I transferred here for a fresh start. I thought I was leaving everything complicated behind in Los Angeles. I never expected to meet someone who would turn my world upside down. In one night, why did you leave Los Angeles? Mia asked suddenly. She'd been wondering since Monday, and now seemed like the right time to ask. Nathan's expression darkened. Office politics. Department corruption. I tried to do the right thing, and it nearly ended my career. What happened? The captain was taking money from drug dealers to look the other way. When I reported it, suddenly I was the problem. They couldn't fire me outright, but they made it clear I had no future there. Mia felt her heart clench. I'm sorry. The point is, I know what it's like to have your integrity questioned. I know what it's like to have people assume the worst about your motivations. Nathan's voice was earnest. I would never, ever put you in that position. You might not mean to, but no buts. Nathan stepped closer again. Mia, if we were to pursue this, we'd do it right. Complete transparency with the appropriate authorities. Proper documentation, everything above board, and you'd think that would be enough. I think, Nathan said carefully, that we owe it to ourselves to try. Mia stared at him, feeling her resolve crumbling. Everything logical told her to say no, to maintain the professional distance they'd established. But her heart was screaming something entirely different. I need to think about it, she said finally. Nathan nodded. That's all I'm asking for. Just think about it. Don't let fear make the decision for you. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Mia, I think you're worth any risk, any complication. And then he was gone, leaving Mia alone with her racing heart and a decision that could change everything. The weekend passed in a blur of restless energy and endless, eternal debate. Mia found herself pacing her apartment, making pro and con lists, calling Jenna for advice, then hanging up before her friend could answer. By Sunday evening, she was no closer to a decision than she'd been Thursday night. Monday morning brought an unexpected crisis that would force everything into focus. Mia arrived at the courthouse to find unusual activity in the parking lot. Several police cars were parked outside, and she could see Nathan through the main window, speaking urgently with Judge Patterson and the district attorney. What's happening? She asked Beverly, who was hovering near the reception desk with obvious excitement. Break-in, Beverly said breathlessly. Someone got into the evidence room over the weekend. Files are missing. Evidence tampered with. It's a nightmare. Mia's blood ran cold. The evidence room contained materials from dozens of ongoing cases. If evidence had been compromised, it could affect prosecutions across the board. Do they know who did it? Not yet, but Sheriff Brooks is handling the investigation personally. He's been here since 6 a.m. Throughout the morning, Mia watched Nathan coordinate the investigation with quiet efficiency. He interviewed staff, examined security footage, and worked with the state crime lab to assess the damage. Despite everything between them, she couldn't help but be impressed by his professionalism and thoroughness. Around noon, Nathan appeared at her desk looking grim. Ms. Rodriguez, I need to speak with you privately. His stomach dropped. About the break-in, among other things. He walked to his office in silence. Nathan closed the door and gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing. The break-in, Nathan began, wasn't random. Someone with inside knowledge of our security systems accessed the evidence room. They knew exactly which files to target. Mia felt sick. You think it was an employee? Think it was someone who wanted to discredit specific cases, and they had help from someone on the inside. Nathan's expression was serious. Mia, I need to ask you some questions. and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course, have you noticed anyone behaving strangely lately? Anyone asking unusual questions about evidence storage or case files? Mia thought carefully. Not specifically, but Nathan, what cases were targeted? Drug cases mostly. 3 major prosecutions that were scheduled for trial this month. A memory surfaced suddenly. Wait, last week, Detective Morrison, the old sheriff's nephew, he was asking me about the Johnson drug case. Wanted to know where we kept the physical evidence, what the access procedures were. Nathan's expression sharpened. What exactly did he ask? Said he was preparing for testimony and needed to review the evidence. But now that I think about it, he could have gotten that information through proper channels. He didn't need to ask me specifically. Nathan was already reaching for his phone. I need you to write down everything you remember about that conversation. Every detail, no matter how small. As Mia began writing, Nathan made several calls. Within an hour, Detective Morrison was being questioned, and by evening, the truth had emerged. Morrison had been feeding information to a drug dealer, facing prosecution, helping him identify which evidence needed to be destroyed to derail the case. How did you know to look at Morrison? Mia asked Nathan as they finished up the last of the paperwork late that evening. Didn't initially. But your information about his questions made me realize that the perpetrator had very specific knowledge. Morrison was the obvious choice. He had access, motive, and opportunity. Mia shook her head. Can't believe I almost missed that connection. You didn't miss it? What? You remembered when it mattered. Nathan looked at her seriously. Mia, your instincts and knowledge of the courthouse operations were crucial in solving this case. You're an incredible asset to this department. The praise warmed her more than it should have, especially coming from Nathan. Just doing my job? No, it was more than that. Nathan stood up, moving around his desk to lean against it. Mia, working with you today reminded me of something important. What's that? We make a good team? A really good team? Mia felt her pulse quicken. Nathan, I know you're worried about what people will think about how our relationship might affect your career, but today proved something to me. Nathan's voice was earnest. You're so competent, so professional, so integral to this operation that anyone who would question your abilities based on who you're dating is an idiot. It's not that simple, isn't it? Nathan moved closer. Mia, I've been thinking all weekend about what you said, about protecting your reputation and your career. And you're right, those things are important. But you know what else is important? Waited for him to continue, being happy. Taking chances on something that could be extraordinary. Nathan was close enough now that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. And what we have, what we could have, has the potential to be extraordinary. Mia felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. How can you be so sure? Because of how I feel right now, looking at you. Because of how you make me. Want to be a better man? Because when I kissed you Friday night, for the first time in years, everything else disappeared. Nathan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face gently in his hands. Mia, I'm not asking you to choose between me and your career. I'm asking you to believe that you can have both. We can figure out how to make this work together, and if we can't, then we'll deal with that when it happens. But Mia, I don't. Want to spend the rest of my life wondering what if? Do you? Looking into his eyes, feeling the warmth of his hands on her face, Mia realized that somewhere in the last week, despite all her protests and fears, she'd fallen for Nathan Brooks completely. The thought of walking away from him, of pretending that what they had wasn't real, felt like the biggest mistake she could possibly make. No, she whispered. I don't want to wonder what if. Nathan's smile was brilliant. So what do we do now? Now, Mia said, rising on her tiptoes to close the distance between them. We stop talking and start living. The kiss was everything she remembered and more. Soft and urgent and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing. Hard, are you sure? Nathan asked, his forehead resting against hers. I'm terrified, Mia admitted, but I'm sure. Nathan laughed, a sound of pure joy. We'll figure it out as we go. Together. Epilogue. 6 months later, the courthouse was decorated with white flowers and soft lighting. Transformed from its usual stark professionalism into something magical. Mia stood in the bride's room, adjusting her simple white dress and trying to calm her racing heart. "You look beautiful," Jenna said, appearing behind her in the mirror, and happy. Really, truly happy. Mia smiled, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. But it hadn't been easy. There had been whispers, and questions, and a few uncomfortable conversations with supervisors. But Nathan had been right. Her competence and professionalism had spoken for themselves. Gradually, people had accepted their relationship. More importantly, they'd learned to navigate the complexities together. They'd established clear professional boundaries at work, maintained transparency with their supervisors, and never let their personal relationship interfere with their duties. It had required compromise and communication and more maturity than Mia had sometimes felt capable of, but they'd made it work. "Are you ready?" Judge Patterson asked, appearing in the doorway in his formal robes. He'd agreed to officiate the ceremony, and Mia couldn't think of anyone more appropriate. "Ready?" she said, taking a deep breath. The ceremony was small and intimate, held in the courthouse where their complicated love story had unfolded. As Mia walked down the aisle, she saw Nathan waiting for her at the altar. Looking handsome in his dress uniform, his eyes shining with love and promise. When she reached him, he took her hands and whispered, "No regrets." "None," she whispered. Back. Only excitement for what comes next. Judge Patterson began the ceremony with words about love, commitment, and the courage to take chances on happiness. As Mia and Nathan exchanged vows, promising to support each other's dreams and face whatever challenges came their way together. She thought about that Friday night 6 months ago when she'd walked into Electric Blue looking for one night of freedom. She'd found so much more than that. She'd found her partner, her best friend, her future. "You may kiss the bride," Judge Patterson announced. And Nathan didn't need to be told twice. The kiss was soft and sweet and full of all the love they'd discovered together. As they broke apart to applause from their small gathering of family and friends, Mia thought about all the fears that had almost kept them apart. She was still the same competent, professional woman she'd always been. Nathan was still the dedicated sheriff who'd won the respect of the entire community, but together, they were something more. They were proof that sometimes the best things in life come from the chances you're brave enough to take. As they walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Nathan leaned over and whispered in her ear, "Thank you for dancing with me that night." Mia smiled, her heart full of joy and possibility. "Thank you for being worth the risk." Outside the courthouse, under a sky full of stars, they danced their first dance as a married couple to the same song that had been playing the night they met. And as Nathan spun her around, both of them laughing with pure happiness, Mia knew with absolute certainty that some risks are always worth taking, especially when they lead to love.